Hi, Dan, Becky. How are you?
Yo, good. How are you, mate?
Yeah, all as well. Thank you, Becky. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks
Good.
for having us,
No,
Shaney.
that's all right. No worries. Thanks for obviously coming back for sure. It's always good to see you
It's
guys.
a funny place to rekindle again.
I know, right? So obviously we've been working on a few things, and we're naturally in this beautiful environment today, just to kind of go through a few bits with you guys. I'm just understand more, to be honest. So like maybe why Dubai, and then obviously we'll kind of get through a few bits that I think it's important bits of information for us to put out there. So I think just to kind of start from the top, I mean, kind of like why Dubai, Dan and Becky? What brings Dan and Becky to Dubai?
Okay, so how we met and why we're here in the first place. Long story short, taking out the how we met. Why Dubai? I said, I'm not moving to Leeds. He said, well, I'm not moving to Reading. And I said, I'd rather live in Dubai.
Cool.
He said, okay. And here we are. So sunny, obviously the tax benefits, the people around here. We feel a lot less alienated out here, I think it's safe to say, because you're around go-getters. And I think when you're back home, bless my nan's very much like, oh, you're doing too much. But out here, no one's doing too much because everyone can't do enough. And
Yeah,
I think,
everyone's got like 6 jobs out here.
and it's kind of normalized, and some people might not say that's the right thing to do, but I feel like it's absolutely the right thing for certain people like us who obviously run these businesses, and Dubai is perfect for that. So that's what I think anyway.
Yeah, we just feel more at peace here.
Yeah.
Like, to really simplify it, like, we feel more at peace here. We've both been coming here on holiday for several years before we met, actually, like on our separate journeys and stuff like that. And it was always a place where I envisaged living one day. It was a bit of a fantasy, a bit of a dream, like maybe one day I'll come and live here. But then when I met Becky, she was like, no, I'm actually going to live there one day. And if if you're ready, we can go now. So we just, turned it from a dream to a reality. And now we're here. And like I said, we just feel more at peace here.
Okay, so that's obviously why you found Dubai. I think the uniqueness of the culture and obviously the attitude of the city and how everyone's so keen to kind of progress to the next level and things like that.
You know what it is, bro, as well? Sorry. You know what it is? It's like, it's such a seamless transition because it has certain aspects of the Western world which make you feel at home really quickly. You know, when you go to, like, you say the Middle East and it sounds so foreign, like so abstract and so far-fetched from the UK, it can be quite intimidating. But Dubai is so accommodating and such a seamless place to come and transition into that we felt at home pretty much straight away.
Good.
I also feel like on the flip side, you feel so less alienated when everyone's an alien. And what I mean by that is everyone here is from somewhere completely different. And really, like all of us, for example, obviously born and raised in the UK, but we actually have completely different backgrounds, but all of us. And that's just 3 people in the whole of Dubai. But the whole of Dubai is like this. And I feel like when you come here, every single person you come across in your work life and your personal life is from here, there and everywhere, has a different backstory, has heaps of life experience, and you're always learning and growing. And I feel like that's what makes you feel more at home because everyone is so not like you, but everyone is so not like, there's no like cliques here and there. You know what I mean? And I like that
I think
about
I want to
Dubai.
go back to one point you just mentioned there in terms of being alien. I think that's it's kind of key in Dubai to have kind of some kind of guidance and advice and things like that to make your lives easier when you do come here. And obviously, you know that a lot of your followers ask us questions, and obviously we'll get to those in a moment in terms of how we can make their journeys a lot easier. Danny, as you mentioned, to kind of transition over from where they might be in the world to the UAE and things like that. I think it's important to mention to kind of on this conversation that we actually know you, Becky. We've actually known each other. To go back to being that alien point, I think obviously I came to Dubai around 2 years ago now, and I think me and Becky have been friends since the days of London. So I think why don't we go a little bit into that, Becky? So obviously we've known each other for I think going on maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I feel like we were like see each other every week friends, but only have surface level conversation friends. And we'd obviously always see each other in like certain venues in London. And again, you're trying to find like-minded people with like good energy all the time. So we'd always end up in the same spot that obviously provided that. And I feel like now, obviously both of us are in Dubai. I think we were actually staying in an apartment and you were like, are you in this apartment? We were like, yeah, how the hell do you know? You were like, oh, we used to live there. And I think even just like stuff like that, you realize how much of a small and homely place Dubai actually is because everyone can help you. No, I literally took a photo of his shoes in the apartment and you knew exactly what apartment it was. You know what I mean? And then obviously from that point on, it kind of just snowballed into us again, seeing each other every week for a completely different purpose in a whole different city. So we went from like partying together to now doing business together.
It's very true.
And then obviously Dan's come along for the journey as well. And I think obviously the friendship between you guys is also really nice now.
I think it's vastly important that everybody knows that obviously I did know you before. And I think that as an added factor made things quite easy for you.
Yeah.
But I think irrespective of the relationship, naturally, I mean, I would exist to obviously help anybody make that really easy, whether they're a friend or not, in terms of actually getting out here. So Dan, I mean, in terms of I've known you now, obviously through Becky, I've only ever met you in person in Dubai, but I almost feel like I've known you really as well as Becky.
Yeah,
so.
I was just thinking this, like, obviously I have not been in the picture in those days when you were out in London giving it the unsunts, but now I'm in the picture, and like now we chat on a regular basis. Like we actually get on as proper good friends. Like it's very natural. Like we can talk about sport, football, we might be going to the F1 together. Like there is a real friendship there. And again, like in other aspects of my life, it's something I've always valued. You know, being around people with good energy, good intentions. If I feel like I can trust you, like I will run through a brick wall for you. And that's something I've always been very kind of big on. And I feel like even though I've not known you that long, like we kind of have that already, which is pretty cool. Nice. And just having that around you, like you see it a lot more here in Dubai, and it's something I probably struggle to find a lot of in the UK. Okay. But from a business perspective, from like a making big life decisions perspective, having that around you is so important. And I definitely have that with our friendship. It's pretty cool.
I feel like everyone thrives off of being uncomfortable here in Dubai, and like everyone thrives off of being on the growth path. So for example, like when we speak about our struggles, it then allows you to then speak about your struggles, and then all of a sudden everyone's on the same boat. Whereas obviously when everyone's, you know, back at home, maybe for example, where everyone's comfortable in their own setting, the level of difference in people's, you know, how comfortable they feel and like how at home they feel is like all over the place. But here, everyone's just so fine at doing the next thing, you know what I mean? And that comes with open conversation, and then obviously you guys getting really close really, really fast and doing things without me. Thank you guys. And stuff like that.
You can come to the F1 if you want.
Yeah, thanks. I would love to.
I think that's it. It's a couple of points to kind of summarize here in terms of why Dubai. I think the collective mentality of people wanting to be progressive here. I think the entrepreneurial spirit that obviously exists in the air here. It's super progressive in terms of how things develop here. And I think it's a very kind of rewarding city, kind of if you obviously kind of do express an interest and want to develop yourself, there is obviously resources and people there to help you do that.
Yeah.
And I think for me, things like the healthcare, the education, and just generally having a family environment that always exists, I think that's a couple of points to mention.
For me, I think I've said it before, but I'll say it again, the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset is like the biggest factor that I think will make the biggest difference to people if they decide to move here. Like if you're somebody who's ready to work hard and you know roughly what it is you want to do, like you will come to Dubai and you will realize that you'll make it happen because there's people here who want to help you. They don't see your success as a threat to their success. Whereas in the UK, like it almost feels like there's not enough kind of cake to go around. So if you're eating, that means that he can't eat, and then if he's eating, that means I can't eat. And it's like here, it's like there's enough for everybody, so let's all see each other win. And like as long as you have a bit of clarity on what it is you want to do, like there's people here to help you realize those things. And I think that is so reassuring, because when you're ambitious and you're trying to do stuff out the box and sort of carve your own path, it can feel like you're on your own. It can feel like no one's walked that path before, and it's quite easy to feel alienated. But when everyone in the city is doing the same thing, just in a slightly different way, and they're trying to help you up the ladder, then all of a sudden you feel like you're part of a community, you're part of a team.
Yeah, I do think to add to that though, obviously we're saying that we had clarity when we came here. We had zero clarity when we came here.
Oh, and we did, it's just changed.
I know, but I think obviously like, to be so honest with everyone, like we actually had no clarity. We thought we had clarity, but we just took the leap of faith and said we're going to make it happen anyway. And I feel like something that I wish I knew way sooner is it's actually so fine to just not know and try something. And if you want to pivot and change in the next 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, that's so fine. You can still run the business. You can still do what you want to do. You can still work for yourself. And I actually think sometimes coming out here, this sounds so crazy, with no clarity and letting Dubai take you where Dubai wants to take you, and then finding your, you know, answer through that is actually what we've done. We actually came here with no clarity at all. And the thing that we both tried to step away from in the UK, we both fully landed on our faces with. So I actually feel like being really honest with that, and again, like what goes around comes around is quite like a negative comment back home. But actually here it's so the opposite, because what you put out is what you get back here. Like, you know, you give so much to other people, let me help you, they will help you 10 times more. Whereas in the UK, it's like, if you do this to me, then I'm going to do this to you. And it's such a negative spin-off. But whereas here, I think it's you know, so the opposite to that. So if you don't feel like you have everything and your whole life written out, you're absolutely not supposed to here, because there is a gazillion opportunities that's going to take you in a whole different direction than you thought you were going to be. And just to, again, take away the alienation feeling, if that's even a word, I just feel like it's really important to note that we did not come here knowing what we were going to do.
Well, yeah, we just did a bit of a 180, didn't we?
Well, yeah, we completely walked away from our old careers and then completely walked back to them.
Yeah, but I think that, again, that shows Dubai in a positive light, because it's like we came here almost like in a bit of a box that we'd put ourselves in, because we were so used to being in that little box thinking, this is what we're about, this is what we're going to do. And then we came here, and because of how sort of infinite all the opportunities are here, and because of how helpful people can be, and because of like how much of a go-getter type of place it is, our box started to expand, and we was like, oh, maybe we can do this. Maybe we should think about doing that. And like next thing you know, we're doing like fitness classes together, which we've never done before. I'm sure we'll talk about it in a bit, but it's like, we didn't consider doing that before. And now we're considering things like we hadn't considered because of the landscape and because of the people who are around day by day and that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely to second what Becky just said there, like if you don't have clarity, like don't worry, you're gonna come here and gain that just from being in and amongst it.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of keywords I'm going to take from that: opportunity, clarity, progressive, kind of the mindset, the entrepreneurial spirit. Excuse me, get my words out. I think Becky, you made a really good point in terms of just pivoting and not actually changing your course. I think there's nothing wrong in pivoting. And yeah, I think that's great in terms of why you guys have obviously come to Dubai. I think knowing you from before has really helped our relationship as well. Kind of getting you guys over here, I think, was a pretty seamless transition. And I think it always helps when you're kind of comfortable dealing with someone you might know as well. And I think having that relationship is just it's a huge bonus. And obviously getting to know Dan more's been wicked as well. And Becky, obviously we're good friends we have been for a couple of years now. So yeah, guys, I think that's some great points in terms of why Dubai, in terms of kind of how you got here as well as kind of how you met as well. So, I mean, I just wanted to get into that very briefly because I know we've obviously got a few things to get through. How did Dan and Becky meet? Like, how did you guys get to that point?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. So, how did Dan and Becky meet? This podcast...
how did we meet originally, or how did we meet? There's a long version and there's a short version.
Yeah, which one do you want? I'll do the 75% version. Okay. So how we originally met, I was basically an ambassador for JD Sports at the time, back home. Dan was doing loads of influencer work, like loads of brand collabs, et cetera, et cetera. And so he was then on the same event that I was doing with JD. Both of us were actually doing like making pizza in this event. He had a different relationship. I don't know what I was doing. I can't remember. I think I was just single and like living my best life. And then basically we had no like real eye contact or interaction really, or anything at all. We've actually got a photo of us two from like 5 years ago, like showing our pizzas to the camera. And that's probably the only interaction that we had after that, like one photo. Anyway, the next year goes by. There's another event with JD, like the JD Christmas party, and everyone was there. And then after that, we also never communicated. I don't even remember really seeing you. He doesn't really remember seeing me. And then all the years went by. So the years are going by. He's in a separate relationship. I'm in a separate relationship, blah, blah, blah. Never really spoke. Then a few years later, he then sends me this really formal message like, "Dear Becky, something about how we have the same values, etc., etc., etc." And just so professional. And I have a podcast called da 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 da, and I'd really love to get you on as my guest because I feel like we really share the same thoughts and da 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 da. Danny Williams. And I was like, okay, well, this is strange because I also have my own podcast. So I was like, great, this is amazing. Coming in with my crazy personality, he's probably thinking, well, this girl's a lot. And basically, long story short, we had a Zoom call so that Dan could brief me for his podcast, because this is what Dan does with all his guests and kind of goes through with them, like, this is what I'm going to ask you. Is there anything that you don't want me to say, et cetera, et cetera? And I'm like, no, it's fine. Ask me anything, whatever you want to ask me, whatever. Long story short, we're on this Zoom call for, like on Zoom, they stop after like 40 minutes.
30 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm cheap. I don't pay for Zoom.
Me neither. I will never, whatever. Anyway, we then have one Zoom and then it locks off. Then we have another one and it locks off. And we must have gone through like 5 or 6 Zooms. Yeah. We were on there for like 4 hours. And I was like, right, I really have a meeting right now. Like, we really need to do something. And like time just went and we were just chat. Yeah. Anyway, a few days later, Dan's actually coming down on my podcast to cut the story short. And he comes down to mine. The podcast is just in my kitchen. He's booked a hotel to stay in down the road. And he comes to mine. We do this podcast. Yeah. 4 hours later, we're still on the podcast. The camera's died. This is overheated. No idea what's happened to the laptop. Something else has gone on, and we're still talking. Yeah. It's like 1 a.m. at this point, because I don't think we started the podcast till like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. or something like that, did we?
No.
And after that, do you want to carry on the rest of the story?
No, you
After that, the file was basically corrupted, and we could not get the file to. He was on his on your phone, and it wouldn't get on my phone. Okay. So we were just like, oh my god, like what are we gonna do? Yeah. Obviously, he lives in Leeds. He needs to go back home. And it was like, well, I haven't got another place to stay. What am I going to do? And I was like, well, there's a spare room. You can stay in the spare room if you want to, because it's literally like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and I still haven't got the file. And I know I'm never seeing that file unless he sends me the blooming video. Yeah. So it was like, you can't leave until I have the video. Yeah. Go on.
It was a nightmare because we was talking for so long, like all the cameras died, and the only footage we had of this 4-hour conversation was on my phone. Yeah. So it's like, if I didn't get her the footage, the whole thing was pointless. I've driven 4 hours to Reading. Like I've stayed in a hotel, like all this effort. And I'm like, you know, like what's it called? Sunken cost bias thing. It's like, you know, if you put so much into something, you just can't give it up. It's like, I am not leaving without making sure like you get this thing. I'm trying to WeTransfer like a 4-hour video. And it's like, after like 40 minutes, it says 1%.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. Oh, what are we going to do? Yeah. We go to Apple to try and find another way. Like we're trying to find every possible way to get this footage sent over quickly.
Well, funny story about Apple actually as well. We've gone into Apple being like, okay, so we've got this like 4-hour video that we really need to get from that phone to this phone, and it's not working. And she's looking at us thinking, well, that sounds inappropriate. And we were just like, no. And we're trying to tell her, no, it's a podcast. Like we promise it's just a podcast. Like, and they didn't know whether to open the files or not on the phone. And then she was
so
like,
sketchy.
And she was like, you guys are such a beautiful couple. And obviously this is the first time we'd ever met. And we were thinking, God, this just gets weirder and weirder.
At this point, it was just purely like a podcast relationship.
Sorry, a bit of context. We weren't sat there flirting for 4 hours. Like on the Zoom call initially, we were just getting to know like a bit of backstory about each other. Yeah. It was one of them things where we kept saying, let's not talk about it, let's save it for the podcast. Yeah. It was like that kind of a conversation where we kept going into things which were really interesting. And we'd be like, no, let's stop, we'll save it for the podcast. It was kind of like that, but we just kept talking and talking. And we came off the Zoom call and I was like, bloody hell, like, what just happened? Like, I'm just like there in my flat on my own, like, what actually just happened there? Yeah. And then we go and do the podcast in person, and it's the same thing, except I guess deeper and more intense, because I'm sharing things like I've never shared publicly before. I'm talking about periods in my life which I found really difficult. Yep. She's asking all the right questions and kind of unraveling some of my journey and that kind of stuff. And there was just so much like openness, vulnerability, honesty. But again, it wasn't romantic at this point. It was just like two people connecting. It was kind of crazy. Yeah. And I remember coming off the podcast, and long story short, we get the file sent over, everything's great, and I'm driving back and I ring my manager at the time and I'm like, bro, I've got something to tell you, but I don't know how to say it. Like, I basically just met this girl who I've kind of met before, but like we don't really know each other, and we just like did the podcast, and like it was absolutely amazing. I don't know like what just happened. He's like, well, do you like her? I'm like, I don't really know if it was like that. It was just like, we're just two people connecting, but I've never experienced anything like it before. And we're trying to put it into words, but I can't put it into words. It was just like, yeah. So basically,
and
if you want to go,
he's saying that, I've then called my mum. Mum, I've met my husband. She was like, huh? And I said, yeah, I've met my husband. End of story. And she was like, Becky, how do you know he wants you to be his wife? I said, I don't, Mum, but I just know that that's my husband. And then he was there going, Becky, I wasn't even attracted to you at the beginning. And then basically, long story short, like months and months down the line, we've gone through like old DMs, and it was like, yeah, you were definitely attracted to me then. But obviously it's a bit of a laugh and joke now, but I feel like, yeah, throughout those weeks, like we didn't even like get close. Like we didn't even hug. We didn't even like for whatever.
The first time we hugged was strange, because I remember, you said something to me, and you said something which I misheard, and it was something like, I don't really hug people, or something along those lines.
Oh yeah.
And I like just logged that and thought like, she don't like hugs. So like if I'm ever leaving her, like just don't give her a hug, just like say bye, whatever. And then like as we was getting closer, like we may have had like a deep conversation about something, or something that kind of happened, and it felt so appropriate to give her a hug. And I was like, do you mind if I give you a hug? Like, and I think you were like, yeah, of course it is. But that was like maybe 6 or 7 weeks into knowing each other. Yeah. Like, so I think people think we like knew each other from before. We must have got close really quick, like blah, blah, blah. No, it was actually the complete opposite. Like it went really slow from the start, to the point where when things first ever got romantic, we were so scared. Like there's so much like not pressure, but like, oh my God, like what's going to happen next kind of thing. Like it was really not like how it kind of came across, I think, to people who was watching it.
Yeah, I think people think that we have this like TV storytelling, love sparking relationship, and that's absolutely not the case. Like even like when we had our first kiss and we were so nervous, like we were like, oh no, and then I was like cringing inside, and he was obviously like about to throw up, because we were thinking, if this doesn't work, this whole thing is a mess, and what a waste of our time. You know, and we put all of our like relationship on such a pedestal of like, it could be this and it could be that and whatever, and then we were like, oh thank God after that. But it's like, it wasn't what people think it was at all. And this is actually the first time we've ever publicly shared this story, and we were like, how are we going to ever tell anyone how we actually met, because they're never going to believe us. But that's the honest truth. I didn't even know if I was attracted. He didn't even know if he was attracted. But like, I don't know if you know what sapiosexual is.
I do, yeah. When you're attracted to intelligence.
When you're,
I forgot we ever used to say that.
And we used to say it all the time. And I was like, I don't know what this like. I don't know what the thing is. I've never experienced it before. Like, I don't know if I like your face yet, but I love your mind. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's obviously how we ended up here, and we have a relationship. Like, I've never had a relationship like this in my life, where it can be professional and it can be straight talking and it's just vulnerable, and it's like how I think it's supposed to be.
It's like how you think it should be, but never is for anybody. And then when you experience it, it's like we became so close so quick, before anything got romantic, before anything got physical. And because we've never experienced that before, it almost felt like, is this how it's supposed to be? Is this right? Like, what we was actually doing without realizing was building really solid foundations for an actual proper relationship, which, I mean, I've had relationships in the past, so have you.
Yeah.
But nothing like this before, where we was so close and so like, you know, so open and vulnerable about things which like I didn't think I'd ever be vulnerable about with anybody from literally day one. Like, it's funny, we joke about our anniversary being in April, and it feels silly to say it's in April, because from the moment we met, pretty much it was like we was joined at the hip, in terms of not just physically but like emotionally as well. It was like, you was like my person from day one, literally, like straight. It was like straight away. It was just like this, you know. It was like I wouldn't want to tell anybody else about anything else. It was just like, I'm going to tell Becky about this, so we need to talk about this, and like it was on like FaceTimes like 4 hours, like 3-4 times a week. You know, that kind of relationship is like, but like 3 or 4 weeks in, and I'm on FaceTime till 4 a.m. You know, they're like, we should probably go to bed now. Oh, one more thing, and then we just like a new conversation starts, and we just keep talking. It was like that. Yeah.
And now we're here.
Yeah, I think.
And now we're here in Dubai.
It's interesting. So you go, just for our viewers and things like that, JD Sports is obviously an apparel brand. I think shooting for a brand like that, and then having technicalities when you go to your podcast, and having that real business connection and understanding one another, and then taking that to a technical challenge of getting a simple file across. And I think you guys have gone from that to now moving to Dubai. And what it is, I think there's many kind of relationships and couples out there who probably do sit in the same kind of seat as you guys, in terms of they are in a relationship, but they also have businesses together. They also work together. So I think you guys are a fantastic example for kind of others who wish to follow in your paths.
Yeah, I think I was very much someone who was like, Becky's going to do it all on her own. Becky's going to do it all on her. Like, no one's going to come into my space. I'm going to have my own property, my own this, my own that. And that's obviously just from fear, right? Of like whatever happened in the past, et cetera, et cetera. And then obviously when I've met someone who actually, you feel like, okay, I can share this with whatever. I didn't think that existed before. I didn't think that was even a thing before. And I feel like just trusting that everything happens for a reason, without that sounding really like voodoo and strange. I went for breakfast with one of the girls in London 2 weeks after we met. I bump into him in the same breakfast spot out of all of the breakfast spots in London in 2 weeks. And we were like, this is getting weirder and weirder. He lives in Leeds, I live in Reading. You know what I mean? Like, why are we in the same breakfast spot in London at the same time? Why are you here?
I think you thought I was following you.
Yeah, and so me and my friend, I was like, we actually need to leave and turn around, because this is too weird. We actually can't go to this breakfast spot anymore. And it was like so strange. And I feel like, again, for anyone that's kind of on the fence about whether they should make this massive jump to go to Dubai, if you don't like it, just turn around and go back home. But just try it. I feel like so many people have this like misconception that it's this big scary place with shiny buildings and everything's made of gold. That's so not the case. You're actually in the desert, and it's not always that glamorous. And it doesn't have to be. It can literally be whatever you want it to be.
I agree.
And us just taking that massive leap of faith, like we'll never look back now, and both of us are kicking ourselves as to think, why on earth didn't we do it sooner? But we wouldn't have been together if we did it sooner. So everything happens for a reason.
It's true. And as well, just for like full transparency, like I had my reservations. Like we wasn't just like, let's move to Dubai. Oh my God, great idea. When do we go? Like I was like on the fence. I was worried about things which maybe I shouldn't have been worried about. Like natural reservations about, obviously moving countries is not no small thing, but just to kind of slam home what Becky said before, like you don't have to have it all. Like, I'm looking at myself right now. Like you don't have to have it all figured out. Yeah. Just do it, and you can figure out some of the things along the way. Like I was sat there. Like, I remember so vividly. Like we're sat outside a cafe outside my old flat in Leeds, and I'm like, oh, I just feel like this. I just feel like I don't know about this, and I'm literally creating problems for myself. Like creating.
And I'm there like, why are you stalling? Do you want to do it or not?
Yeah, like creating excuses for myself as to why, but really it's just fear. Like I have this comfy little flat, like I have this nice little life. You know, my dad's just around the corner. Like, you know, my friends aren't too far away, and like this whole Dubai thing is like this scary challenge, right? So I'm trying to create reasons why it's like not the right thing to do, whatever. But the fact is, I was just scared. Yeah. And if you walk head first into things you're scared of, you're gonna have a great time, and you're gonna learn way more from doing it, and you're gonna be so proud of yourself for doing it. And it's like, I wish I could just sit myself down now and say, Dan, shut up. You actually want to do it deep down, so just do it. You know,
imperfect action is better than perfect inaction.
Yeah.
Well said. Facts. Well said. Okay, guys, I'm gonna change the structure of this a little bit now. So obviously, Dan, you mentioned you had reservations about Dubai. You didn't know where to get started. You didn't even know how to get here. Becky was clearly kind of someone who's ready to do it. But luckily, Creative Zone exists. We are here. So I know that you guys have said that you've kind of got some top 10 questions from your followers in terms of how they can effectively get out here and, you know, potentially replicate your journey and actually get to Dubai and actually kind of get a residency visa. So, I mean, I'd be keen to kind of answer those top 10 questions just for the viewers and obviously iron any details out. Because Dan, like you said, the reservations and not actually knowing how to get started and just obviously answer any queries that others might have that you had.
Yeah, and these questions are questions that I absolutely had myself. You know, they're not just like random questions pulled out of thin air. These are the very questions I needed answering. So that's why we're going to go through them today.
Right.
We've got 10 minutes, so yeah.
Okay, should we start?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you go through the whole setup process from start to finish in really simple terms?
Yeah. So in terms of the options of actually getting set up out here in the UAE, we have a couple of incorporation options. You've got things such as free zones as well as setups such as mainlands. So now the free zones were simply created with the purpose of giving ease of expatriate ownership of businesses. Now what that loosely means is if you're a foreigner and you're not a UAE national, it makes it a lot easier to actually own one of these businesses. Now a lot of these businesses, they can be kind of service-based, so we can actually do them from a virtual space. So a lot of people think, okay, well, if I set up in Dubai, I might need a physical office. It's not the case. We can actually do it with a full virtual office, and that's obviously included kind of in the package. The second option I mentioned was a mainland business. Another thing is mainland businesses are really aligned to kind of specific activities. So say, for example, if you take something like a restaurant or a hairdressers, or even for the cases of kind of working with public or government-based companies, you would need a mainland company. So those are kind of the two options you can look at when you actually first get started.
Yeah. And you are free zone.
Free zone, yeah. What did you say before? You think you said it to me. It was like, if you're online, you need a free zone. If you're on land, get a mainland.
Pretty much.
Basically.
Yeah, so it can be a general rule of thumb to follow. Now, naturally, there are certain activities you can do from the mainland that you can also do in the free zone. But I think it's more so just aligned to who your target kind of market is. So say, for example, if you're a marketing company and you obviously want to work with the UAE government, for example, or kind of any government-based kind of entities, you would need that mainland license. But if you're not working with any kind of any government entities and anybody private, you can certainly do that for the free zone.
Okay, cool. And then how long do you need to be here to keep your visa active for?
Yeah, good question. So naturally, you do get a visa, a residency visa, as we done with you guys, for the minimum of 2 years. You get that alongside, obviously, your business license. A business license being the free zone incorporation on the mainland. To answer your direct question in terms of how long you would need to be here in the UAE, it's once every 6 months to keep that visa active.
So one visit every 6 months, not for 6 months straight.
Yeah, no, so it's once every 6 months. Naturally, we offer kind of clients the autonomy to kind of come and go as they need. So it's once every 6 months to keep your visa active.
So nobody's stuck.
No.
And then what if someone changes their mind? Like, can their license be changed or is it fixed? How does that work?
Yeah, good question. So the thing is, say for example, if you set up a free zone entity and say for example, the requirements of your business change, maybe you have a new client that you'd like to work with and they're based in the government, for example, you can then therefore create a branch or a subsidiary of your existing license, or you can set up a kind of a completely separate entity. So there's always kind of autonomy and flexibility to kind of create whatever licenses you may need to kind of cater your business requirements. Because that's one thing we look to do. We want to know kind of the future of your business. We don't want to know just the short term. We want to know kind of the full long-term plan so we can obviously plan that accordingly. So yeah, there's always room to change.
Great. And how complex is it to open a bank account?
Yeah, it's quite straightforward. So we obviously have the facilities to kind of take care of that for you, whether it's a business bank account, whether it's a personal bank account, things like that. So at Creative Zone, we've actually got a dedicated banking team. So even when it comes to kind of business banking, we do have a couple of options. You obviously have your more kind of traditional corporate options, but you also have kind of more digital kind of banks as well, which are a lot easier, focused more towards small and medium-sized entities.
Cool. So if someone had no idea about that kind of stuff, they would just speak to someone from Creative Zone and you guys would just sort that out.
Exactly. So naturally, you would speak to me. We would then obviously run through all of your requirements of your business, get yourself a visa, and obviously all of the kind of the details that encompasses the visa as well, which we can get onto as well. And thereafter, you would kind of look at your bank account options, but we take you through that entire journey.
Okay, so obviously a lot of people come here for the tax benefits and et cetera, et cetera. What are they now? Because obviously it's complicated now. Things have obviously changed. How would we simplify that to people?
Yeah. So naturally, the UAE has a 0% tax. It's applicable towards a free zone entity. Now, there is a threshold. Obviously, if you exceed, then you are liable for tax in the free zone. I believe it's around 375,000 dirhams. So that works out to be about 100,000 USD. So thereafter, you then are liable for 9% corporate tax in the free zone, whereas with a mainland setup, you are kind of liable for 9% corporate tax. Now, a lot of people say to me, well, Shaney, that's 9%, it's quite high. But if you compare us to kind of any taxable kind of jurisdictions or countries around the world, we are kind of probably in the top 3 for being the lowest. So I think the tax benefits as well as kind of the quality of life alongside what you guys have experienced is a key reason as to why kind of people are moving to the UAE and bringing kind of their families over and things like that and setting up their new lives here.
Yeah, and also just the lifestyle, right? You have to pay a little bit to get a lot back.
It's not a bad deal, is it, when you think about it?
No, so I think the thing is, we obviously offer the autonomy, as I mentioned, for you to kind of bring your whole family over. So say, for example, if you have a visa, which you've got through Creative Zone, we'll take care of that for you alongside your business. If you wish to bring over your family, we can certainly do that as well. So it's a very simple process in terms of whether you'd like to bring your children over or your partner. I mean, in terms of the structuring of it, we would obviously take care of all of that for you. But it's very, very simple because I think a lot of people are under the impression that they may have to come alone and they have to take that big step alone, but it's not the case. And we obviously exist to guide them through every step.
So there's something called a golden visa, right?
Yes. So the golden visa is effectively a 10-year visa. This 10-year visa you can actually get by way of purchase of property. So if your property and the equity is more than 2 million dirhams, it qualifies you for this 10-year visa. And again, it's an awesome service that Creative Zone offers. So it's a 10-year visa. And again, you can actually come and go as you please. It allows you to obviously kind of purchase more property if that's something you'd like to do. Open those bank accounts as well. So again, that's kind of the details around the golden visa. And that's again something that Creative Zone can offer to anybody who needs it.
Yeah, I think one thing that is kind of, this is actually just another random question I've thought of now, is when I was looking into it, you always think like, oh gosh, what if I do something and I'm stuck? What if I do something that I can't turn back? What if I whatever? From my understanding, you can obviously renew or not renew or change or switch up if you want to, right? So how flexible is that?
Yeah, so flexibility is certainly an option. There's always room to kind of be flexible when it comes to anything, whether it's your business, whether it's your visa and things like that. So if you do need kind of help and guidance on that in terms of how you can navigate that flexibility, we're here. I'm here.
Yeah, thank you so much for going through all of those. I honestly wish that we had this video ourselves when we were looking, and this is kind of how I ended up here in the first place. I like wanting to do it because I was just searching YouTube just to try and find like-minded people who had been through the same kind of process. So yeah, thank you so much for just making it easy for us and calming his nerves down, because if you didn't do that, Shaney, we would not be here. So thank you.
That's okay.
From me personally also. But yeah, Creative Zone really took the stress off of us, and we're very grateful for that.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here and enjoying Dubai and thriving like we are if it wasn't for Creative Zone. Simple as that.
Thank you very, very much, guys. And obviously I hope that helps kind of the followers and obviously anybody who may be watching this podcast and obviously this video content. So yeah, I mean, let's obviously kind of get into things of what's next for Dan and Becky. What's going on with you guys?
Great question. Continue the YouTube, continue to grow personal brand collectively. And we're also doing a new fitness class. So we're doing a new fitness class called Functional Freedom. And what that basically is something where people feel as good as they look. I massively think it's a huge thing in Dubai where a lot of people look incredible, but they actually don't feel that way. And a lot of people look really fit on the outside and have everything like carved out amazingly, but on the inside don't feel like an athlete, feel like they can't walk up the stairs without getting out of breath, and feeling like you're really stiff and your back breaks when you lift a bag or whatever. So we're basically here to create a new community. Hopefully there's like a bunch of couples that come, single or couples, whatever, doesn't matter, but a new community of people that can come to our space, have a laugh, have a good time, feel refreshed afterwards. So that's kind of our new little joint venture that we're doing next. And again, we wish that we had the community when we came here, and you guys have been the first people to provide that for us. Now we want to add to that and continue that and provide it for others. So that's what's next for Danny and Becky together.
Well, thank you for obviously taking the time to join me and obviously run through what's next for you guys, obviously answering some of your followers' questions in terms of how they can actually move out to the UAE, as well as kind of just introducing ourselves, because I think that was quite important as well. So I think kind of going forward, it's fantastic to hear where you guys are going to be. And yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
For any of our followers who want to know how they can get in contact with Shaney or with Creative Zone, and you want to kind of follow the same path as us, there's going to be a description in the link. No, there's not. There's going to be a link in the description below, and you can click that landing page, fill in your details, and then Shaney will be on the other side of the phone.
Awesome. Thank you so much.